All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be digging into the world of computer chips, more specifically, the clash that's brewing between AMD and Nvidia.
Yeah, it's heating up.
Definitely heating up, especially in the AI arena. We've got some really interesting market analysis from this street and some breaking news from CNBC on AMD's latest moves. And just so you know, this isn't going to be all just like gigahertz and nanometers.
Yeah.
We're going beyond that. We're talking about market trends, the possibility of a real changing of the guard, and what this all means for the future of, well, everything.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because, I mean, in a way, it's kind of a classic David versus Goliath story playing out, you know?
Right.
But there's a twist. So you look at AMD's stock performance this year, up 20%, which, for a lot of companies, that's a win, but
That's a good year.
that's a fantastic year. But then you look at Nvidia, and they're up over 175%.
It's astronomical.
Yeah, it's insane. So everyone's trying to figure out, can AMD really catch up? Can they close that gap?
Especially when NVIDIA's had like a really strong hold on the AI chip scene. I mean, for a while now. Their GPUs are basically synonymous with developing AI, and that kind of market share, it's like the holy grail for any tech company.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, NVIDIA, they got that early lead in AI acceleration with their CUDA platform.
Right? Everyone uses it.
And that right there gave them this massive advantage. Like, imagine trying to convince millions of developers who are already, deep in the CUDA ecosystem to switch. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a hard sell.
It's like asking everyone to just suddenly switch from iPhones to Android.
Exactly.
It's not just about the phone itself, right? It's
Oh.
the apps, it's the whole experience. So you're right, AMD's got an uphill battle for sure, but they're not backing down. The Street's own Bob Lang, he's a technical analyst, and he's been watching AMD really, really closely.
Yeah. What I find really interesting about Lang's analysis is that he uses these technical indicators, like this thing called the CHOP index. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
It's really interesting. It's basically like, reading tea leaves,
Yeah.
but for the market. You know what I mean? Like trying to look beyond the raw numbers and understand what's really driving those stock prices.
Interesting. So what are these tea leaves telling him about AMD?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, but one of the first things he points out is that even though the market's volatile, AMD stock has been climbing steadily. This isn't just like retail investors jumping on a bandwagon or anything either.
Hmm.
He's seeing a lot of big institutional money flowing into AMD.
And that's huge because when you've got those big players, the ones with the deep pockets and like whole teams of analysts, when they start betting on a company, that usually means they're seeing long-term potential.
Exactly.
So what's he saying about their long-term potential?
Well, he seems to think AMD has what it takes. He keeps talking about this resistance point at around $187 a share. You can think of it like a hurdle that the stock needs to clear. It's tried a few times, but hasn't quite broken through yet.
Kind of like a mental block.
It can be, yeah. It can be a psychological barrier as much as anything. But once a stock breaks through a resistance point like that, you often see this wave of buying, investors jumping in, trying to ride that momentum.
So it's like, ooh, it finally broke through. Got to get in on that.
Exactly. Fear of missing out.
Totally, totally. Okay, so what's Lang doing? Is he buying in yet?
Okay, so this is the really interesting part. He's saying publicly that he's waiting for the right time to get on board himself.
Wow.
And we're not talking about just some random blogger here. This is a seasoned analyst with a really strong track record. He clearly sees something in AMD.
The question is, what does he know that we don't?
It's like he sees this rare bird, about to take off, and he's waiting for that perfect moment to snap that like award-winning photo. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
While all this stock market stuff is going on, AMD isn't just, sitting back watching the ticker tape, right? They're making some really aggressive moves to challenge Nvidia, like on their home turf.
What do you mean?
So they've launched this new chip, the MI325X. It's designed to go head-to-head with like Nvidia's best GPUs, including those highly anticipated Blackwell chips everyone's talking about.
Okay, so this is serious business then. This isn't just like a techie arms race happening in some lab somewhere, right? This impacts everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about the chips that are going to power everything.
Yeah, everything.
From like the self-driving cars we're going to be in to like the next big medical discoveries. I mean, even just, those movie recommendations you get, the ones that are like creepily accurate.
Right.
AI is everywhere, and these chips that are making it happen.
And, because NVIDIA has been so dominant in this AI chip market, they've been able to, like, command these premium prices. if, and this is a big if, but if AMD's MI325X can deliver similar performance at a better price,
Game changer.
yeah, it could really shake things up. I mean, imagine the impact on, like, the cost of developing new AI technology. It could even affect the prices of, consumer products down the line.
Right. Wow. Okay, so let's get down to it. What can this MI325X actually do?
So this is where it gets really, really interesting. AMD says that this thing is significantly faster, especially for things like machine learning and deep learning. We're talking about potential breakthroughs in areas like, how computers understand language, how they recognize images, the really fundamental stuff that's driving the AI revolution.
So it's faster, potentially cheaper. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? What's the catch?
Well, remember when we were talking about Nvidia and how entrenched they are in the AI world?
Oh, right. Their software.
Exactly. CUDA, it's basically the industry standard. AMD, they've been working on their own software platform called ROC, but getting people to switch, it's a huge ask.
It's like trying to convince a whole generation of chefs to give up their gas stoves and switch to induction.
Yeah.
It's not just about the heat source, right? It's like they've built their whole careers, their recipes, their techniques, everything around this one way of doing things.
And it's the same with AI development. Switching costs are huge. You'd have to retrain entire teams of developers, rewrite tons of code, and then there's the risk that things won't even work right. It's a gamble, A lot of companies, they're just not willing to take that risk.
So the big question is, will AMD's chip be good enough, so much better, that it convinces these developers to make that jump? Or will Nvidia just coast on what they've already built?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call. But AMD has another trick up their sleeve. So while they're fighting this battle for AI dominance, they're also a major player in the CPU game. CPUs, that's the brains of most computers. And they've actually been gaining some ground against Intel, their main competitor in that space.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in all the the AI hype, but CPUs are still running the show in a lot of ways. I mean, especially in those massive data centers, the ones that power the internet.
Exactly. And get this, CNBC said that AMD's data center sales more than doubled last year. Now, AI chips were part of that, but the majority of those sales, it was their ePYC server CPUs.
So they're sneaking up on Intel.
Yeah, they're definitely making Intel nervous.
Wow. So it seems like AMD is really playing the long game here. They're not putting all their hopes on AI. They're trying to dominate across the board the cutting edge AI stuff and those workhorse CPUs that we rely on every day.
It really is. It's like watching a really intense chess match. They got the CPUs, they're making moves in the data centers, but can they actually turn all of that into a full-blown AI revolution? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Will developers actually go for it? I mean, having the hardware is one thing, but without that software to back it up, it's almost pointless. Like having a Ferrari, but no roads to drive it on.
100%. And right now, NVIDIA's CUDA, that's the road, right? It's smooth. Everyone knows it. AMD's ROCm, that's I don't know, it's like a brand new back road.
Okay, I like that.
Maybe it's faster. Maybe it's got nicer views. Who knows? Yes. But are you really going to go out of your way to take that detour?
Right. And especially if you're a developer, right? And you've spent years, maybe even your whole career, learning this one way of doing things, learning that other programming language, that's a big ask.
Huge. It's a risk. But okay, here's what I think is really interesting. You remember those big institutional investors we were talking about, the ones who are pouring money into AMD?
Yeah.
They're not just betting on the hardware, right?
Yeah, right.
They're betting that AMD can actually change the software game too.
So the real competition, it's happening in the code itself.
In a way, yeah. It's in those lines of code. It's in the developer communities. It's this race to see who can build the best, the easiest to use, the most powerful AI development platform.
Wow. So even though it feels like NVIDIA's miles ahead, this thing is far from over.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And that's what makes all this so exciting, right? In the tech world, anything can happen. What seems like an insurmountable lead, it can disappear overnight. There's always something coming up from behind ready to shake things up.
It's like in sports, right? You get these dynasties, they think they're going to win forever, and then boom, this new team comes out of nowhere. They're hungry, they've got something to prove.
Exactly. And to me, that's what AMD feels like right now. They're the underdog, and they're making the big players nervous.
And that's what makes it so exciting for the rest of us, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. because it means that, like, the future of AI, the future of all this technology, it's not set in stone. It's being written right now.
Love it. It's happening right in front of us.
Uh,
Well, on that note, this has been another deep dive. We'll be back next time with more stories from the world of tech and who knows what the future holds. See you then.